Hello and welcome to the Royal Record here on GB News. I'm Cameron Walker, GB News' Royal Correspondent.
And I'm Svar Nanan-Sen, Royal Editor of gbnews.com.
We have a lot coming up for you on today's show. First of all, we've got Prince Harry and Meghan. Their Chief of Staff has quit after just 3 months in the role.
And we'll be looking at why Prince Harry has decided not to attend his uncle's funeral amid security issues.
And the royals have been busy with the Olympics. Princess Anne, Duchess of Edinburgh, have been across in Paris cheering on Team GB. And we've got some special messages from both the King, Queen and the Prince and Princess of Wales.
And following that video from Kate and William, we'll be looking at whether it sparked the latest instalment of what's being dubbed Beard Wars.
I think he looks quite good with the beard, but Svar disagrees. We'll be discussing that later. Let's go.
Cameron, I understand that Prince Harry is set to miss Lord Fellowes' funeral because of many challenges around a trip to the UK. Some of them he's openly discussed about his fears with returning to the UK because of security issues. We know he doesn't have the level of security that he feels comfortable with. And then another challenge is the fact it could set up an awkward reunion with Prince William, who is likely to attend the event. We saw Harry take a similar stance with the Duke of Westminster's wedding in June, where Prince William was an usher, and despite being quite close to the Duke of Westminster, Harry also didn't attend that event. So there's a lot to unpack there as to all the challenges that Harry's facing now in attending these family events in the UK.
Yeah, and I think it's odd in a sense because this is the second family member, or at least close person who Harry is close with, that he's missed quite an important event. With the Duke of Westminster's case, I understand that Prince Harry had a phone call with the Duke of Westminster beforehand, and they kind of mutually agreed for the benefit of everybody. It was probably not great, but he attended because then the spotlight would be on him and William's rift. This time, as you say, we understand one of the key reasons is for not attending Lord Fellowes' funeral is security. Lord Fellowes is Lady Jane Fellowes' husband, which is Princess Diana's older sister. So very close to the Spencer family. Lord Fellowes also former private secretary to Queen Elizabeth II. And we know Harry in particular is very close to the Spencer side of the family. We saw Lady Jane and his brother and her brother Earl Spencer support Prince Harry in the Invictus Games 10th anniversary at St Paul's Cathedral. And we also know that Prince Harry has to give the Home Office 28 days notice before he returns to the UK in order to get any police protection. Because I think a lot of people forget that he does get some police protection when he comes to the UK, but it's not automatic protection and he has to give a lot of notice. But for a situation like a funeral of a close relative, that's quite difficult because you obviously don't know when somebody's going to die, and usually a funeral takes place far less than 28 days after the death. So he's in a little bit of a predicament there. What's he going to do for future funerals, which he may be sadly have to attend?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, he is close to that side of his family. They were the Spencers were the only set of family that chose to attend his Invictus anniversary event at St Paul's Cathedral. That was the last time he was in the UK. I think with Harry, there's obviously the security issues are at the forefront of his mind. But if the rift with William isn't close to being healed, it will continue to be a problem for both Harry and William as to when they do have to come together for these family events, funerals, and also other things.
Yeah, I think the elephant in the room that is not being mentioned by either side is the fact that Harry and William not on speaking terms. I think the caveat to that is Lord Fellowes' funeral, we don't have a date for it. They're keeping it very private. It is going to be a private family event. But even then, the two of them appear to are not going to be in the same room together. Now, Harry's, or sources close to Harry, perhaps indicate security as a major factor, as Harry has indicated on the record in himself in the past as to why he won't return to the UK. But again, it does come back to any event Prince Harry returns to. Will he see the King? Will he see Prince William? And it's the same family story over and over again, whatever Prince Harry does when he comes back to the UK. And perhaps he's dug a little bit of a hole for himself here. Clearly, Prince Harry feels hurt by his family. He feels hurt that his security was downgraded. He feels he's been hard done by. But it's really tricky to see how this situation resolves, particularly around security, until we get this decision by the Court of Appeal. Because at the moment, we are waiting for that decision whether or not they will change the security if it was unlawful.
Yeah, and something you touched on there about Harry, whenever he comes to the UK, there is this big story around will he see his family or won't he? And Harry himself has felt the need to clarify that. In May, when he returned, he issued a statement saying that he would not be seeing King Charles due to a schedule clash and because the King's diary was too full. So Harry himself is aware that when he comes back to the UK, there is a huge amount of interest as to what his relationships are with his family and will he be seeing any of them.
And again, he did return in March when Buckingham Palace announced that King Charles had cancer. He dropped everything and flew across to the UK to see his father, albeit for 40 minutes or so. But as far as we're aware, there wasn't 28 days notice for that. So it is possible for him to return to the United Kingdom if he really, really wants to. Yeah.
And we've spoken about the rift he has with William at the moment. And William actually released a video with Kate to commemorate the success of Team GB. But a little nugget in the video was that William was sporting a beard, a brand new beard.
Let's take a look at the video first.
From all of us watching at home, congratulations to Team GB.
Well done on all you've achieved. You've been an inspiration to us all.
Prince William sporting his new facial hair there. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that a little bit later on, but the King also delivered a message to congratulate Team GB, hailing them an inspiration. I'll just read his message very briefly. He said, "My wife joins me in sending our warmest congratulations to the competitors and their support teams for Team GB and across the whole Commonwealth for their many outstanding successes at the Olympic Games in Paris. Your achievements across so many disciplines were forged from that invaluable combination of raw talent, true grit and hard toil over many years, burnished these past weeks by sportsmanship and team spirit in the finest tradition of the Games. To those who missed out on the greatest prizes, you have most certainly not fallen short in the pride that you too have generated for your nations. As we thank France for hosting such a wonderful tournament and look to the Paralympics ahead, I can only say that you have all been an inspiration." We also had Princess Anne go to Paris for the Olympics. She is the president of the British Olympic Association. She saw rugby 7, swimming, equestrian, rowing, sailing and windsurfing. Duchess of Edinburgh also was spotted congratulating Team GB in Paris. She is patron, and she also released a message saying, "As patron of Great Britain hockey and British cycling, it has been a wonderful few days in Paris, watching so many inspiring sporting moments at the Olympics. Congratulations to everyone at Team GB. It was a thrill to see you compete. You have done us proud." Princess Anne, Duchess of Edinburgh, both went to Paris. King, Queen, Prince and Princess of Wales did not.
Yeah, I think it would have been difficult for Kate to go. It would have obviously been the furthest that she's travelled since being diagnosed with cancer, and we haven't seen Kate do any international engagement since. It's unclear why William didn't go. I mean, he was a strong supporter of England's football team in the Euros, but obviously that was part of his role as the president of the Football Association. But yeah. I think with those messages and with the appearances of both the Duchess of Edinburgh and Princess Anne, we did see a huge amount of support for the athletes in Team GB from the royal family. And there was also a really nice moment, a really nice message from Princess Eugenie. She did an Instagram post talking about her love for the Olympics. She attended the Olympics in London in 2012. And she also spoke about one of the highlights of that was seeing Zara Tindall, her cousin, compete at the Olympic Games. So we saw a lovely exchange between those two cousins as well, and just great wider backing from the royal family.
Yeah, and I think it shows that the minor royals, I hate that phrase, but I'm gonna say it, the minor royals were supporting their king in supporting Team GB actually in Paris. And also I think Prince William can't be expected to do everything. I think he is spinning a lot of plates, as well as supporting his wife who is going through cancer treatment. So perhaps that is why. But we did get, as we mentioned, and as we just saw, that very special video message from William and Catherine. But I think the main distraction from that video for everybody was his facial hair, which I think he looks quite good with it.
Yeah,
if he keeps it in September.
You're a fan, aren't you?
Yeah, and so is a lot of people online by the looks of it. It's makes him look a bit more chiseled. Let's see. You're not so keen.
The jury's still out. Yeah. Let's see if he keeps it in September, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time he's had a beard. I think he had one in 2008. The military have now relaxed their rules, saying that soldiers can now have beards. And obviously, relatives in the past of Prince Williams, his grandfather in particular, great-grandfather, sported beards as well. When I say grandfather, I don't mean grandfather. I mean great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather. People had beards, right?
Yeah. And then we briefly touched on it earlier, but William's beard actually created the latest instalment of what people have dubbed the Beard Wars. This goes back to Prince Harry writing in Spare that William was furious that he had chose to keep his beard for his wedding to Meghan in 2018. Prince Harry wrote in Spare, "When I informed William that his opinion didn't really matter since I'd already gone to Granny and got the green light, he became livid. He raised his voice. He added that William accused Harry of putting their grandmother in an uncomfortable position, saying she had no choice but to say yes." So this is because Harry felt so strongly about his beard and the fact that he didn't want to shave it off for the wedding that he spoke to the late Queen and asked for permission to keep it. Prince Harry has also referred to his beard in Spare as his security blanket. Aww. So it's something that Prince Harry obviously feels really passionate about. And now it looks like William's briefly joined him with also sporting a beard.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think it'll be interesting to see if this was just a relaxed Prince William on holiday, can't be bothered to shave, did a video last minute because he had to for the Olympics, and he'll shave it off come September when he's back on full-time public duties. Or he has decided to grow it, and maybe he'll keep it. So let's see. Watch this space. When Prince William next does a public engagement, which will probably be in a few weeks' time in September when the children are back in school, we will keep a close eye on whether or not he keeps his facial hair. We're delighted to be joined now by Richard Fitzwilliams, royal commentator. Welcome to the Royal Record podcast, Richard. First of all, we've heard this week that Prince Harry and Meghan have lost their chief of staff. This seems to be the latest in a long line of exits since Harry and Meghan's marriage in 2018.
Yes, indeed. And in fact, it's been calculated that getting on for 20 people have left their employ in one way or another. And also this issue brings up, and I think it will be something that nobody's forgotten, the allegations, and that is the bullying allegations against Meghan, which were investigated by Buckingham Palace. But of course, this wasn't made public, and those involved couldn't because of non-disclosure agreements. So the timing of this is odd. I mean, People magazine, which has replaced Omid Scobie as a sort of unofficial voice of the Sussexes, has said that it's by a mutual consent, but he was only there for 3 months, and it does very, very strongly underline the fact that they are obviously very difficult to work for or to please. And going back some years, this narrative, it's not something that will go away. Equally, there are no facts to back up, that we know, to back up any specific disagreement between him and them. We probably will never hear of it. It's just a feeling that they are difficult to live with.
Of course, Meghan has always denied the bullying allegations made against her, as has her lawyers. But you're right, there does seem to be this consistent staff turnover, right? And I suppose the next question would be, is this the fact that A, as you suggest, they could be difficult to work with, but B, there doesn't seem to be any clear direction at the moment as to where the Sussexes are going with their professional work?
Well, now, this is something that I think we're all looking for, possibly, and this hasn't come up, but obviously with Kamala Harris now being the presidential nominee, this again could open the possibility, and there's always been flagged up, of Meghan, who has a certain activist streak, which we all know of, going into politics, but we don't know that that is on the horizon, but it certainly could be. Then, of course, I detect with these quasi-royal tours. I mean, there was Jamaica fleetingly in January. Then there was admittedly very successful from their point of view. I think the trip to Nigeria, Meghan discovering the fact she was 43% Nigerian, and the fact that Nigeria just joined Invictus and perhaps intended to, or was hosting, or hoping to host in the future. That was the excuse for that. This one to Colombia, I mean, very, very clearly this is happening, and I think that this is quite consistent. It's happening at a time when, unfortunately, owing to the fact that King Charles and the Princess of Wales are fighting cancer, we're not seeing the use of British soft power, which is absolutely unique, and that is the royal trip abroad, which is so helpful and which is absolutely sought after. We know King Charles, of course, is with Queen Camilla attending Chogam and then going to Australia. But the original tour of the Antipodes, of course, won't occur. And again, all of this is subject to doctors' advice. And I think that the Sussexes are taking that as part of a strategy which will lead to these quasi-world tours possibly elsewhere.
Richard, so just bringing it back to the Colombia tour, which we know is going to happen this month, the timing of the departure is very strange, isn't it, of the Chief of Staff? He was there on the Nigeria tour with them. He also accompanied Harry back to the UK in May. And it will create unwanted headlines for the Sussexes just before they embark on this tour.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd say it's a very clear vote of no confidence in them. And I think it's pretty public because the least they could have done, if they're not compatible, is to have waited until the tour was over. Absolutely.
So it looks like, perhaps, let's say, publications favourable to the Sussexes have suggested, or sources close to the Sussexes have suggested that the departure of Josh Kettler was mutual, that he was only ever hired on a trial basis, and that he just wasn't the right fit. What do you make of that kind of briefing from those close to the Sussexes?
Well, I think it very clearly wasn't the right fit because obviously he and they did not get on. Now, why? We'll never be told, I suspect. But as you say, I mean, that he leaves just before an important tour because they haven't established this series of quasi-world tours to be not consistently yet. I suspect that this is what is coming. So clearly it is somewhat of a blow, and it does bring back again the memory of the allegations that Meghan was always denied about bullying when they were senior working royals, and that isn't pleasant. And again, the way they handle things, I mean, the reports that American Riviera Orchard is having problems with the trademark for internationally, and also the fact that the security issues keep coming up.
And Richard, you mentioned there about security issues, and we know now that Prince Harry is very unlikely to travel back to the UK for his uncle Lord Fellow's funeral. Security issues has been the reason that's being put out there. He spoke recently of fearing of being attacked whilst he was in the UK, and we know he's not comfortable with the level of security that he's got in the UK. Do you foresee that this is going to be an obstacle that Harry will face now, and he may really step away from the UK and not return unless it's for a major event?
This is a very, very curious issue because when the Sussexes stepped back only to step down as senior working royals, they knew they would lose automatic police protection. Harry believes this was a wrong decision and that it was wrongly made at his suit against the Home Office. I mean, he couldn't pay. He offered to pay for security. He couldn't have a two-tier form of police protection because the rich could pay and those others not. I mean, that he was always going to lose that. What is clearly emerging is that he believes that Britain is dangerous. Now, that appears hypocritical when you look at, say, security in Nigeria, even if it was arranged by the defense minister, or the security in Colombia, even if the vice president is arranging it. The fact simply are that both countries are considered somewhat dangerous, certainly parts of them. But I suspect that Harry's taking this case, which he lost at the High Court, about getting police protection to the Court of Appeal, I suspect that his view of it will have been, of security fears, will have been heightened by the recent riots here. We've learned from people, apparently, that it is said, or reported, that he believes that one of the reasons for the dreadful breach between him and King Charles appears to be that, if we're to believe this, that he believes that King Charles has the power to override Ravek, makes these decisions, the Home Office, and reinstate their police protection. But the curiosity, I mean, when he was last here, not only did he not, as we know, see his father, but also reportedly was offered a berth in a palace and chose a hotel. So it doesn't make that much sense. But what does, very clearly, is he does believe there's a threat. We know he's haunted by what happened to his mother, and we know on this particular issue he's taking it further. So the Court of Appeal, he wants to be one of the other VIP categories. And in my opinion, if he was, certainly post the riots, because they are conscious of a right-wing extremist threat, it would at least be a gesture, so far as the British establishment is concerned, if he was given the security that he feels he ought to have. Would he then return more often? Would he bring Meghan? Would she want to come, given the fact she's so unpopular? Would King Charles meet his grandchildren again? Time will tell.
I suppose it shows that at the moment they can hide behind this security issue when it comes to why they're not returning to the UK. If they did suddenly get a better deal when it comes to security, perhaps there'll be more questions asked as to why Meghan isn't returning to the UK at the moment. But Richard, you picked up on a very important point there, the fact that Harry's lawyers have argued in court that Harry has felt singled out when it comes to downgrading of his security. We also have heard in his memoir Spare that he didn't get on with some of King Charles's or Prince William's courtiers, namely Sir Clive Alderton, for example, the King's private secretary, and that is why that is why perhaps he felt that Ravek was being unfair against him when they made that decision to downgrade his security. But by the fact that Prince Harry seems to continue to talk about his security arrangements, are you getting the sense that he wants to try and get the British public on side ahead of that decision by the Court of Appeal?
I can't help feeling that Harry and Meghan probably feel that they've lost, at least temporarily, lost the battle for support, public support in Britain, because their popularity ratings have been dreadfully low for a very long time, and it was such a contrast when they married, and also Harry's ratings before. We all know that. I think it's quite significant, however, the Newsweek, the most recent poll, has shown them more popular in the United States. I mean, again, in the United States, we know William was voted the world's most popular figure just ahead of President Zelensky last year in the Gallup poll. So this battle for popularity, I think they would like to increase their ratings. On the other hand, I don't think that most members of the public are following the step-by-step security battle, because it is somewhat a truce. But they would sympathise with the simple fact that he feels under threat because of what happened to his mother. And on the specific point, if there was a poll, I think he would do rather well. But everyone remembers. And it's interesting on the special relationships. We've got the Sussexes supposedly having with people. Now we also have the Sussexes with a very special relationship, it seems, with CBS. And we had that CBS trail for the Columbia visit. And we had Meghan supposedly asked a question that she appeared not to want to answer. And we had another clip from the infamous Oprah interview. And where is that? that members of the public wouldn't be probably following this. Royal watchers have been very, very curious to know, would Meghan have known? And I'm rather few she would. The question should be asked in that short trail. Because after all, I mean, watching the Parents Network to help parents whose children have been harmed, sometimes dreadfully harmed, by online content. I mean, that's absolutely excellent. But to bring back memories of the Oprah interview and Meghan's unhappiness, certainly had the mental health issues when she was a senior working royal, that took it to another level, and she talked about taking a hit. Some saw that as a veiled threat to the royal family. So it's a curious relationship with Oprah, with Gayle King, with Anderson Cooper, and then with this last interview with Jane Pauley.
Richard, do you feel that Meghan and Harry will stop now with public attacks on the royal family, and that just was a kind of thinly veiled threat, or there's more to come?
Well, I rather fear there's more to come. I would like to think that given the circumstances and given King Charles and the Princess of Wales's illnesses, that they would stop attacks. But again, we saw in Harry on ITV in the documentary about alleged tabloid excess, we saw the fact that he was discussing the rift with his family, and that very, very different attitude had made the situation, the rift, worse. Indeed, it had been one of the causes of it. So it's impossible to say. I suspect that the sort of attacks that we saw in Oprah, and with a series, very, very different, though, in the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary, then Svar and the interviews he gave around this, well, I mean, they were pretty brutal, and I wouldn't have thought, I mean, decency would forbid that they repeated those. On the other hand, there are always reports that come out, allegations that Meghan could write a memoir. Harry kept 400 pages apparently out of spare, and it's possible some of them might emerge. They know every single thing, and this is one of the reasons that Columbia is important to them, because it does show that they're very high international profile. The fact the royal family or holiday wouldn't be conducting overseas tours at the moment is one thing, but the fact that it is very, very difficult for both the King and Queen, and also for the Prince and Princess of Wales, to do it. That does tend to indicate, with royals such as Duchess of Edinburgh, Princess Anne, their tours are at a different level. Harry and Meghan know that they are being followed by huge international media, and that will, I suspect, give them a sort of an edge. I would hope that they would not criticise the royal family. If just consider for a minute that they decided to say something nice about the institution or the Commonwealth. I mean, that would be, insofar as I mentioned, security, if that was, so to speak, conceded, or if Harry won his case, and that would put that issue to bed. Imagine the Sussexes making some form of gesture and saying something that was favourable. We haven't seen any of that, and it's a long time since they've done that.
Okay, Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A great pleasure.
That's it for another episode of The Royal Record here on GB News. Remember, you can get in contact yourself using the email address royal@gbnews.uk or the hashtag GBN Royal Record.
And you can keep up to date with all the latest royal news and analysis by going to gbnews.com/royal, by signing up to the Royal newsletter.
Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.